Hello everyone. Today is Halloween, so I thought instead of doing a regular vlog or make another carved pumpkin, which I have done during the week, didn't win that contest sadly, but I would tell a couple of stories instead of just odd things that have happened in the past. And it's usually not that strange for me to have small odd things happening, like I'll be rummaging through my work bag, and trying to find something. And then after a few seconds of not being able to find anything, I'll think to myself, where did I put that charger? And then suddenly my hand will grab it like, oh, here it is. You know, that type of thing, without seeing it. That's kind of normal for me that I have that every once in a while. But I'm talking the slightly larger things that happen, I guess you would say. Like, we all have those experiences that you think about, hey, where did that thing go? And then you turn your head and there it is. That type of thing is quite normal as far as I'm aware. But I'm talking more unusual things, like I used to do, this is back in the 90s, I was in a vocational training for pharmacist assistant. I don't know if there is a different term for that in English, no idea. Either way, it's somebody who works at a pharmacy, but they're not the pharmacist. They are the person who is the helper, I guess. Pharmacist assistant is what it's called over here. So that in itself is not very spooky. But anyway, so I was not doing great, and I was actually going to fail that year, although I was still kind of hopeful that I might make it through the exam somehow. This is from the, I think, first to second year, because there was a 3-year program, and I think I made it through my first, no, it was from the second to the third year, sorry, because I did make it through the first year with some trouble, but I did get there. But the second year was way too much for me, because I didn't really have a direction that I wanted to go in as a teen, and it was more like something that I thought I could do, I would be able to tolerate during my day-to-day life, because I really didn't have much of a goal in life. Actually, I never really knew what I wanted to become, and I still don't really know. It's just like, okay, I'm doing things because I can. Anyway, on to the spooky thing. So I would have to take the train to the town where the school was, and from that train station I would take a bus over to the area where the school was in that town. And one day I was on my way back to the train station on the bus, and I'm just standing there. It's kind of busy. There's like people all around, other students, other people that happen to be going to the station, and I'm worried about the exam results because I've just had my exams and they kind of went half and half. I thought I was going to be maybe okay in some classes, and I was definitely not very happy about other classes, but I kind of hoped that I would make it. And I was thinking to myself, you know what, I hope I make it, because you know, it would be really good if I could pass at least. And then I heard my own voice in my mind replying to me saying, nah, you're not gonna make it. And I'm like, huh? That's me. But it also wasn't, because I wasn't actually thinking at that point. It just kind of came in. So in reply to that, I thought to myself, well, actually, I hope I do kind of make it. And then a few seconds later, there was this, no, you're not. And I kind of forgot about it, and didn't make it that year. Was to be expected. So a year later, I'm still in year 2 of this vocational training to be a pharmacist assistant, hating it every day, having lots of trouble at home as well, because my mom was paying for it and she didn't like how much progress I was not making, and I was definitely not happy all around. And I'm back on this bus, once again on the bus on the way home to the train station, and I hear myself saying, well, I hope I'm gonna make it, just like I had said a year before. And without even skipping a beat, I replied, no, you're not. Just like I had heard it the year before, but this time it was me in the present talking to the me of the past. So basically the entire conversation took place in my mind twice, with a year apart. Which is interesting, because I've heard people explain that deja vu, that feeling of, hey, I've been here before, might be related to your brain having like a moment to, I guess, absorb things without actually processing what they are until later, like a split second between receiving information and processing it so that you're aware of this information. And I don't think it took my brain a year to process me talking to myself, so that was a very interesting experience. So speaking of deja vu, I actually had a very interesting one the other day. Well, the other day, it starts much earlier than the other day. So once again, we're dealing with a considerable gap in time, I guess you would say. Because it starts with me being roughly 30 years old and lying in bed and just half awake, because that's usually when the interesting things happen anyway. And I hear this voice in my head, and it's a woman, and she's talking about how you're, I don't know, capable of doing things, and you should try to get help or something, or blah blah blah, this whole monologue. And I'm like, what on earth is this? Because I have no idea who this is, don't recognize the voice, I don't know what they're talking about, because as far as I'm aware, and I also told the voice at that point, like, yeah, you don't know me, I'm gonna do whatever, and I'm gonna be fine, you know. Sure, I had some issues, but I was also very independent and able to take care of most things. I was living independently, which I think you would hope to be doing that at age 30, but still, for me that was quite an achievement. And as far as I was aware, I didn't really need somebody to come and kind of talk down to me, even though it wasn't quite talking down, but it sounded like they were talking to somebody who was lost and maybe needed help or something that they could somehow provide. I don't know. But I didn't know what the conversation was about. I just heard this one monologue of a couple minutes. Well, not even a couple minutes, just like maybe half a minute or something. So I was a bit confused about that. But I also just kind of forgot about it because, you know, things happen when you're half awake, like I said. And this was about 10 years ago by now, and I hadn't thought about it in a really long time until recently. I started watching a few interviews by Chris Hansen with people who had dealt with Onision. If you don't know who that is, don't bother looking him up because he's really not that interesting, but he is one of those guys currently on the internet that a lot of people like to see what they're doing because they're not great people. Anyway, so Chris Hansen, who you might know from To Catch a Predator, was actually interviewing people who had dealt directly with him, and one of them actually ended up saying exactly what I had heard when I was 30 years old and half awake laying asleep in my bed, which really caught me off guard because there's no way that anybody could have known anything about that situation. Actually, the situation that they were in hadn't even occurred yet at that point, so that was very interesting. If I can find a clip, I'll play it here. So this is exactly the same tone, same voice, and exactly what I heard at that moment.
You're young, and I'm not going to discredit your intelligence or your ability to determine right from wrong, but you are young and you are impressionable. I was so naive, and I really I thought I knew. I thought I was on top of it, and just because you're smart doesn't mean that you're experienced, and doesn't mean that you're gonna catch it as soon as you see it. So please, please be careful and respect yourself and know yourself, and know that that man or that woman or that person does not care for you.
And like I said before, this person, well, we weren't even really on the internet. Maybe he was doing stuff, but he definitely wasn't as known as he is now. And like I said, the people that Chris Hansen was interviewing had not even had their experiences yet, so this was all very unusual, to say the least. And it really made me wonder for a very long time, and still actually, if there is really such a thing as free will, because I had no idea that that was going to happen, and nobody did at that point. And also there was no way for me to avoid living that timeline, if you will, if you want to go down the timeline theory, like you have a glimpse of the future, but that's just a part of a timeline, and if you do things differently, that you might end up in a different timeline, which may be better or worse, depending on your choices. But I had no idea that I even had choices. What I mean is, I of course made choices on the way from there to here, but I didn't know where they were going to lead. And while I'm going around through my life, through 10 years of my life, making what I think are well thought out choices, I still end up in the exact same spots where this exact monologue by this exact person is being held, and everything that led up to that monologue has also happened all around. So that's odd, to say the least. And maybe odd isn't really the right word. Maybe disappointing. But kind of like everything you do, even though you think you're being conscious of everything that you do, you still follow a certain pattern, is what I'm trying to say. Like there's a certain pattern laid out. Everybody has to follow their pattern, even when they think they're doing something that goes beyond that. Because trust me, I've done things in that 10 years that I never thought I would at the point that I heard it. Like really trying to break out of my comfort zone and stuff like that. I wasn't sitting still for 10 years, in other words. And still, I end up at that exact point. And I'm pretty sure everybody else around me has had their timeline set out as well, because they all needed to interact in order to create this exact world that we're in, if you think about that for a second. Everybody contributes their own small little piece to how this world currently functions. You know, it's like a fractal. There's like this whole thing that you're looking at, the world at large. It's this huge, incomprehensible thing. Everything's happening at the same time, but if you zoom in enough, you see the individual parts working to make everything exactly the way it is. And I kind of felt in that moment that everybody was on their little track, making what they thought were conscious choices, but actually it's just part of this gigantic play that plays out right before you while you think you're aware of everything. So that was interesting. So a lot of times people like to hear creepy stories about monstrous creatures walking around at night trying to scare people, being chased in the woods and stuff like that. But I think somehow ultimately real life, or what you think it is, or what it may actually turn out to be, can be actually scarier than the creepypastas you can find on Reddit or something along those lines. Of course, creepypastas are kind of fun to read as well, so if you want to read just a plain and simple scary story, make sure to go check out Reddit, because I'm pretty sure they got plenty. YouTube will have plenty of scary stories, but ultimately real life, I think, is the scariest of all. So I hope you'll have a nice Halloween, and of course if you have any interesting stories to share in the comment section, make sure to do that. We'll be back next week with a different vlog. Hope to see you then. Thanks for watching, and bye bye for now.